Countermeasures, missiles, rockets and aircraft positioning coming up. Okay, so first clip shows a little wrestler with an attack boat who seems quite intent on spawn killing of our carrier. First thing to do is get some altitude so that I can get my nose down and start hitting it with rockets. He engages his active protection, so it's time to stop firing for a moment, get directly overhead, because it makes it much harder for him then to track me with his gun. And because I've still got altitude, it's nose back down and some more rockets to finish off an easy kill. This next clip shows an attack on a tank that's just stolen our flag. I can see his nice juicy rump, so I don't get as much altitude as normal, firing a few rockets, which does a reasonable amount of damage, before he engages his active protection. This time, rather than flying directly overhead, I just pull back, which gets me more altitude, and means I'm still in the right place to get a top-down / rear attack on his ass. A random backwards Viper. Nice. This is another attack run on a boat, which I only notice after he started shooting at me. First thing to do, of course, is to get altitude again so I can get a successful attack run with the rockets, keeping my movement as random and as difficult to predict as possible, so it's much harder for him to shoot me, although he's still landing quite a few hits there. But once I've got my altitude on, it's nose down and in with the Zunis again. Straight away he engages his active protection, so I go directly overhead again to keep gun tracking as difficult as possible for him, and it's nose down and back in for a second salvo and the kill. What I wanted to really highlight with this clip, and I'll play it back again slowly, is that by making that turn overhead, when I turn back towards the target, I've still got backwards momentum. If you watch the speed on the left there, although my nose is going down, I'm actually decelerating. It's only until after I get my nose on target and start firing again that I start to lose altitude and accelerate towards the target. That of course gives me the most amount of time available to fire directly at the target while still keeping altitude. I'm hoping that made some sense at least. Let's just take a little break between clips here to enjoy a failed attempt at stealing my helicopter as I land on the carrier to give it a little bit of a polish. He's obviously seen it on the carrier, stationary. Maybe thinks he can have a cheeky little bit of helicopter theft, and fails miserably by slamming into the AA gun. Nice. Let's take a look a little bit now at dealing with heat-seeking missiles. Now, there's a couple of things to consider when you get a missile fired at you. Firstly, the type of threat that you think it might be, Stinger or Igler or mobile AA perhaps. And secondly, and most importantly, the range and direction that it's coming from. Because in some cases, as in this clip I'm showing now, you see it's coming from behind me. I know I can put this rock between me and it, and I don't even have to fire countermeasures at all there. And it's that threat indicator, the white bar that moves around the centre of the HUD, that is the key to this. You see, as I fly over here to try and find that guy again, he's pretty much below me at the point at which he fires, so immediately I've got to fire flares. And because I've now used my countermeasures, I know he's going to have a pretty quick reload time, so the best thing to do in this situation is to run bravely back behind the rock. Now, of course, that course of action applies specifically to this set of circumstances. You know, there's so many variables to consider when you're trying to decide what to do with someone shooting at you. It all depends on what terrain and obstacles you've got to help you, how many threats you've got in total. There are no hard and fast rules. The best thing I think I can say is that you should perhaps always try and look around you, always get a bit of situational awareness, and don't be afraid to pull back from the situation and just take a moment to figure out how to deal with it. Like here, for example, approaching the fort again, we're quite high up, but that's okay because I know I've got an escape route down here to the left, so that when someone fired at me just then, I was pretty confident I could get away from it, just with a little bit of flare action. And of course now I know where he is, so I know where I'm going to be safe, relatively, and where I might not be. So we just hang this side of the fort for a little bit while we watch what happens to the bomb. Enemy picks it up, but I know it's inside, so there's not a great deal I can do about it at the moment. Now my flares have reloaded though, we can start to take some sneaky peeks around the side of the mountain to see who's approaching. Coming up now is an example of when you might want to fire a flare at the lock-on stage before it's actually been launched. I think most people would tell you that that's a bad thing, and that's almost certainly normally the case. But in this instance, because I'm so close to the guy, you can see all the infantry here, I'm pretty sure that's where the threat's coming from. The threat indicator is showing moving quite quickly around the HUD, so it's very close. So what I'm going to do here now is fire flares straight away, and I've got my escape route down there to the right. So I can get away and round behind this rock again before he has a chance to fire a second time. As you get more experience, you start to get a feel for when you might need to be hovering over that countermeasures button. And the other thing there to bear in mind is that it's always a good idea to have an escape route and to be thinking about where you can scurry off to when it all gets a little bit hot. What we're going to look at now is a bit of heli on heli action and an example here of when not to fire your flares before a launch, because now I've got both my heat seekers to fire at him and he's got no more countermeasures to deal with that. As he loses power I can keep my altitude, and it's always better to be above your opponent, generally speaking. Now because I've lost sight of him here, I'm paying attention to the gunner's direction of view, and I'm able to reacquire the target, and because I'm out of heat seekers while they're reloading, Zuni rockets are a very effective way to get the kill. In the second example we go up against what I think is probably a more experienced helicopter pilot. He waits until I've fired my first missile to launch his countermeasures, as do I. We both then follow each other with a second lock, a second fire, and both lose power at the same time, and I fortunately get a hit on the cockpit there and kill the pilot. But he's done fatal damage to us, and it seems only right to go down with the ship. That was a very even battle. I'm back in with Roy now on Firestorm. He's going to get a nice little TV missile kill there. And this is an example here of sort of evaluating a threat, I suppose you could say. We get a lock on there. Again, no firing countermeasures because I'm pretty sure he's behind their flag somewhere. And we just wait to see where exactly that threat's coming from. Once I've seen it, countermeasures away and running away bravely to hide behind a building. Now that I've got enough distance away from it to be safe from another lock-on, what we're doing here is probably a technique that you'd only really use in hardcore, and that is using the TV missile to go and find out what exactly we've got to deal with over there. Obviously in normal mode you can pretty much spot, and everything pops up with nice red symbols over them. Now we've got flares reloaded again, we can go and be a bit more brave, checking out what's around, and I think I'm including this clip because it's an example of where I've failed to get the flares off in time, but also to highlight that you shouldn't always panic and jump out of the aircraft even if you get hit. You see, we take quite a bad hit there, and also quite a bad rebound off the pipe there. Far too many pilots just jump out, but you can see, despite getting ourselves into quite a lot of trouble, we still managed to make it away and back round behind some cover. This bit was just a little amusing instance of somebody not quite getting the point of capture the flag. I don't know why he's running towards us, because we've got our flag on base, so we should be capping that. And also you'll notice that as Roy jumps out there, I managed to get a team kill on him. I think that probably doesn't happen in normal mode, but it's something to be aware of if you play hardcore. I think we both get fed up with trying to persuade the guy with the flag to go and cap it, so a little cheeky team kill. And before Roy gets a chance to cap, LAV pops around the corner, I soften it up, and he can get a nice little RPG kill. Last two clips now. This is just Roy and I doing a little bit of business on Conquest, Caspian Border. Nothing particularly special here, just general gameplay, just taking a bit of punishment, using a rock for cover, and a really cool bit that, that just looked awesome, coming up, a little RPG dodge.
Right to the left.
And this was amazing as well. This was slightly earlier on in that game, I think. And having said all that stuff about watching out for threats and things, you just never know when you're going to find some slams in the road.
Oh my god, that's insane!
Catch you later, folks. See you in the next one, I hope.
Oh, man alive. You gotta believe it.